Hello, this is David Dickens, and today we are going to talk about a YouTube video that Walter found. It's called Top 5 Retirement Regrets of People in Their 70s. So since we have a lot of listeners in their 50s and 60s, I thought this would be a really good topic for today. So I'll get Walter. We'll get all set for this podcast, unpack it for you, and hopefully it's a really fun episode.
Do you need help protecting your finances as you enter retirement? David Dickens of KC Financial Advisors has got you covered. Welcome to the Cover Your Assets KC podcast.
Back for another edition of Cover Your Assets KC. Walter Storholt here alongside David Dickens. He, of course, is the president and wealth advisor of KC Financial Advisors and probably more excited than just about anybody at what's about to transpire the day of this podcast's release. David, the official start of the Kansas City Chiefs football season.
Well done, Walter. For a guy who really doesn't care much about the Chiefs, that was really good.
They get to open it up with it's a great season opening game, I guess.
What a game.
Yeah.
I mean, for any football fan, obviously we're biased because we live in Kansas City and we got a ridiculously great team, but that's a great season opener for anybody who cares about football.
Well, usually the Thursday nighters are kind of snoozers, so it's going to set a different tone this season for those to actually be worthwhile games to watch. Fingers crossed, at least, that this first one.
I did see that we have more non-Sunday games than any team has ever had in the history of the NFL.
Interesting. Well, they're trying all sorts of different things now, right? We've got a Friday night game in Brazil and all sorts of different things going on.
I think we have a game on every day of the week except Tuesday.
All we have to keep our fingers crossed for is some major snowstorm that causes a Monday night game delayed to a Tuesday, and we have no covered.
Then we'll have the 7 Pete.
That would be pretty interesting, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, very good. Good luck to the Chiefs. We'll see how the season gets going here.
I'm sure it'll be some ups and downs, and hopefully it finishes the way everybody in Kansas City hopes it will.
Yeah, fingers crossed for you guys on that front. Well, let's dive into the topic today, David. As you mentioned, I found this video, and it's kind of humorous. It's just a guy who's retired, and he's just documenting his journey through retirement. I think when I checked the video, he had something like a couple hundred subscribers. Most of his videos had a few dozen views, maybe a few were in the hundreds. And then he did this one video that had 500,000 views and counting. And so it struck a chord with the algorithm on YouTube and I think with a lot of folks out there. And it was a pretty simple concept. He didn't even show the interviews with people. It was just him talking for like 5 minutes, and it was the top 5 regrets. He interviewed people between 70 and 80, so they've been in retirement for a couple of years at that point, and he interviewed them about their top regrets in retirement. So I guess this is a warning to folks in their 50s and 60s, David, of what to be aware of. And,
I watched it, and he's certainly never been in the entertainment business. He's just a regular dude,
just a straightforward guy.
But it was a very fun little 5-minute watch. I assume that we'll have a link to that in the show notes today.
Yeah, why not promote him, help him out a little bit?
I think that'd be fun.
Yeah.
And he gives a little bit of background. I'm going to try to give a little bit of background for some of my clients for each of these 5 things. And then, you know what, our listeners kind of take from it what they will. But I thought 4 of the 5 were really good heads up for people in their 50s, 60s, or maybe you've retired and you're feeling a little bit lost. And so this might be a good reset if that happens to be you.
Yeah, that's perfect. So we'll just take them one at a time as he did in the video, and David will give us some great context for our listeners and from his experience working with clients over the years. So here is the first of the 5 retirees in their 70s regretting these things. First one, David, is that they wish they had retired earlier. Well, that's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, that is interesting. And I got to say, I racked my brain for one client of mine who would have said that, and I couldn't think of one.
Really? Interesting.
Not one. And so if you're listening to this and you're a client and you're saying, well, wait, what about me? Sorry, I forgot about you. But my clients, I have clients that are still working that don't have to be. And I don't have anybody that said, man, I worked that extra 3 years and I just should have packed it in. It's just they worked until they wanted to be done. Now, I have a couple of clients who got out of a job. They retired on somebody else's terms. So their job got eliminated and they were in their maybe early to mid 60s and they really wanted to kind of do something in that time frame and they didn't get to. But I don't have anybody that said, man, I wish I'd gone out earlier. I've got clients, I think an amazing number of clients, who have picked up part-time work, and they don't need to, but I think they just want to stay productive, feel productive. Whether they worry about money, well, I can tell you from the work I do for them, they don't need to worry about money. That doesn't mean you don't worry about money. So there are a lot of reasons why people work after retirement, but I don't have any that that felt like they slaved away a couple years longer. So obviously that's a personal opinion that each of us will hold when we get to be in our 70s. But I think it's a less common thing amongst the successful than this particular piece of his top 5 would otherwise tell you.
Yeah. You know what this one speaks to me? I'm extrapolating a lot here, but you work with folks who have planned for retirement. So the goal is really to hit the right retirement date. So that's probably a good thing that you don't have a lot of people regretting that they worked too long. Whereas maybe this guy interviewed a lot of people who didn't go through that kind of planning, probably had assumptions that they couldn't retire when they wanted to, so they worked those extra years. Later on, finding out, I would have had enough if I'd stopped a few years earlier, so yeah, I regret not retiring sooner. To me, that might just come down to the difference in having a plan versus not.
Yeah, actually, that's very well said, Walter.
Yeah, interesting. I'm surprised, though. I will say, I thought you would have said, "Yeah, this is very common." But now it starts to make sense with your data point there. All right, second one here, David. Another regret of those in their 70s, looking back on their retirement years. They wish they had spent more when they first retired. A similar theme, perhaps.
Yeah, except I would say that I think this is true, actually.
Okay.
And so I have very few clients that are going to run out of money or that even could run out of money. But I think it's that fear of running out of money that keeps you tight, keeps a lot of people tight in their early years. And we're going to cover this more in the fifth reason, the fifth regret. But when you're in your early years of retirement, regardless of how old that is, those are the times when you probably have the best attitude, the best hips, the best knees, and you ought to be out. It's going to cost a little bit of money to be retired, and all of a sudden you don't have that paycheck coming in. But that's where, like you mentioned right at the end of the first regret, that's where having a real written plan that you can go back and revisit, and that hopefully you or your advisor are updating on an annual basis so that you can look at it and go, oh, okay. Didn't matter what the market did this year. Didn't matter what it did last year. I'm still on track. So I think that's the key to freeing yourself up to spend more when you're in the early years of retirement, is to make sure that you're confident that your money's going to more than last through your 100th birthday. Now, I will say I have a couple of clients who, when they retired, kept spending just like when they were working. And the problem is that they didn't really have any savings that was outside of their IRAs and 401ks. So, as we've discussed a number of times on this podcast, the IRS owns a piece of your IRA and your 401k, and it depends on what your tax bracket is, but the state of Kansas or the state of Missouri or whatever state you live in, except 6, they want a piece of it too. So let's say that you're in the 22% bracket in Kansas. Well, the Fed wants 22% federal, and you get to pay another 5% to Topeka. So all of a sudden, when you're taking, $20,000 out for a trip, well, you have to pay $5,000 of that in taxes, so you're only getting $15,000 to spend. That is a real killer if you're in your early years of retirement and you are still spending like you are working. It just doesn't occur to people how much they're going to pay in taxes when they take money out of those retirement accounts that have been deferring taxes all these years.
Great points across the board there, David, as we talk about these 70s, folks in their 70s and the regrets they have about retirement. We've hit on retiring earlier, which David had a little disagreement with as it relates to his clients, and then maybe some correlation between wishing they'd spent more when they first retired. That's one where you can give people the permission to spend more, David, but they still have to go and actually do it. And,
yes. Some of my encouragement maybe is a little too strong for certain of my clients, but After they come back from a cool trip, they're like, okay, that was really good.
Yeah.
So, sometimes it is getting permission from someone who maybe knows your finances better than you do.
Yeah, we still want to try and get that to be, I guess, the Goldilocks kind of mentality here. We want it to be just right. But if we are going to err on one side, better to have wish you had spent more than wish you had saved more or spent less.
That's true, because you don't want to get to age 88 and realize, oh my gosh, I'm out of money. All I have left is Social Security.
Yeah.
That's not very fun.
Better to have the buffer than to not have it, I suppose.
For
so
sure.
We're going to go that way. All right, third regret that this guy on YouTube found through his casual interviews with those in their 70s was that they wish they took better care of their health. I can imagine a lot of people raising their hands on that one.
I can imagine. I mean, if you hadn't done that, you'd be pretty bummed out. I will say that the vast majority of my clients are active, healthy, and pretty strong. So that's not really something I hear from my client base, but I certainly see when you're out at a store or at church or wherever you see a broad swath of people. I see 70-year-old people that look like and act like they're mid-80s. And I see mid-80s people who act like they're in their early 70s. So taking care of your health is so important. And it doesn't happen by itself. So, I mean, I regularly go, not regularly, every year I go get my physical because I honestly don't have things that are really wrong with me. But I have an acquaintance who, this guy he must be late 50s or early 60s, and he has never had a colonoscopy. Yet his father died of colon cancer. And so you're thinking to yourself, and he's retired. You're thinking, wow, you retired early and you're not doing some pretty basic things they're getting so good with these diagnostics. And some of these things are pretty easily handled if you catch them early. So, it's never a bad time to be concerned about your health. And if you get like this top 5 of people in their 70s, well, if you get to your mid 70s, and things are starting to go wrong, well, those are things you wished you'd taken care of in your 60s.
Yeah, especially if a little bit of preventative care could have gone a long way.
For sure.
No doubt about it. All right, another regret is that people wish they had taken up a hobby earlier in retirement. We have some friends, David, they go and do, we've talked about them before here, I think, on the show. They go down to Arizona for 4 months every year. They've been retired now for a little while, but they do this every year. And the whole goal while they're down there, while also escaping the cold, is to do hobbies. And she learns something different every year when she's down there. And she did silversmithing last year, I think pottery a prior year. And then she comes back and gets all the stuff. So she does a couple of months of the classes where everything's provided. She figures out what she wants and how much she wants to do it. And then the whole next year, she's diving into that new hobby, making people jewelry all over the past year and pottery the year before that. And she did photography classes the year before that. So pretty cool. And then she's able to use that skill and enrich everyone's life around her by providing them with really neat little thoughtful gifts and things like that throughout the year. So just very enriching. And I can see why this would be a struggle for some folks wishing they'd added to their skill set a bit.
Yeah, and it's really a matter of taking a look around and seeing, well, what do I really enjoy doing that I might be able to do until my 70s or 80s? So I have a fairly big group of retired guys that I play golf with on the weekends. Well, they play 4 times during the week. And so that's their deal. They love it. They love the camaraderie. And so I don't know if they spend any time with grandkids. The other things I see my clients doing are spending time with grandkids and volunteering and, of course, traveling. But these guys just love to play golf. And I don't think when I'm retired I could play golf that much. But, that's whether it's golf or tennis. I got friends that play pickleball all the time. But it's kind of killing 2 birds with 1 stone. It's a hobby. And depending on how you do it, it can be exercise too. So those are all good things. I've got clients who spend a lot of time with their grandkids, sometimes because their kids are working and the grandparents end up being part of the daycare situation. I have others that just, even though Linda and I aren't retired yet, Linda is, but I'm not. I mean, we're recording this. This is the first podcast we've ever taken on the road. So I'm actually podcasting from Texas, where my grandsons live. And we just love hanging out with those boys and helping them with their reading skills and playing in. They have a pool in the backyard, playing in the pool, and so we spend a lot of time with our grandkids, even though I'm not fully retired. And then volunteering. I've got a client who started 1 day a week at a place in Kansas City that does, for lack of a more complete description of it, they take in furniture and other things from people who don't need it and get it to people who do need it. And he started out doing 1 day a week. I think he does 3 days a week now because it's his thing and he really loves it. So finding a hobby, whether it's volunteering or it's making stuff or recreating with your friends or hanging with grandkids more, it is really important, because that's one of the things. You don't want to retire and then look around and go, well, what am I going to do now? And I've had some unsuccessful, I'm not going to call them unsuccessful retirees. I've had some retirees who could have been more successful early on if they would have had a plan for this number 4, taking up a hobby. If they'd have had a better plan for that a couple of years before they retired, instead of trying to figure it out after they retired.
Yeah, there's lots of different strategies, and I love the variety of things that you just mentioned there, David. It's great. We can count anything as a hobby. It's something that's going to bring you purpose, let you use your time wisely, add to your feeling of accomplishment. All of those kinds of things are going to be really beneficial. So find something that makes you tick and lean into it a little bit in retirement. It was really cool. I was visiting my folks just last weekend, David, and it was really fun to see. Dad has already started, they've only been retired less than a year, and most of their time's been spent fixing up their house, but Dad's had the itch to get back into volunteering and serving the community and things like that. And so he's his first little thing he's picked up is the morning bread delivery. He just does it once a week, but picks up the bread. And what's cool, though, where they live now, is he gets to drive the bread truck, and it's got other supplies on it too that they do. But there's an island that has folks that are in need, and so he gets to drive the van to the ferry. And I got to see exactly where it was when we were visiting with him. He was showing me, and it was so cool. He's like, yeah, it's kind of intimidating because I get to park in this special little spot while the ferry pulls off. Everybody gets off the ferry, and then that whole line of cars has to wait for me. They flag me on first, and I have to back down I don't just drive on the ferry. I have to back onto the ferry, unload everything real quick. Everybody's waiting on me to get out of the way. So then I got to hop back in and drive out of there. So,
well, how fun.
Yeah, pretty fun. I was like, that must bring a little excitement to the day, and as well as the purpose. He's like, yeah, it's a little intimidating when you got all those people waiting on you.
Yeah, you don't want that to get too exciting, like backing it into the bay.
That would not be good. That would not be good.
I bet you end up in the evening news, though. That'd be kind of cool.
There you go. Well, it did have a side benefit. He found the locals joint to go get lobster. And it's only $8 a pound.
Oh my gosh!
And it's right next to the ferry. So once a week he drops the ferry off. He goes and grabs a lobster, takes it home, makes it for dinner that night. So I was like, that's a pretty good day in retirement, right?
That is pretty good.
So it's good stuff. All right, let's get to our last regret here, David. Our fifth and final one that was talked about in this YouTube video. Folks in their 70s, looking back on their first few years of retirement, wish they had traveled more. Not surprising to see that one, but
that is not at all surprising. Yeah. And so since most of my clients are still in their early 70s or in their 60s and some in their 50s, I don't have many people that are regretting this, but I do have some that I'm suggesting to them that they're going to regret it if they don't. Like I said, I think in number 2, at some point your hips don't work like they used to, and your knees don't work, and your feet hurt. And maybe your brain doesn't care anymore about getting out and seeing new stuff. So,
are you telling me that Shakira song "Hips Don't Lie" was about getting into retirement and you can't move as good as you used to?
Walter, I'm too old. I don't even know that song. Let's not put a link to that though in the show notes, because who knows what she's talking about. But especially if you like, or you dream about international travel, if that's your thing, well, between navigating time zones and the long flights and all the walking you end up doing, I had a couple who came back from a river cruise, which you'd think would be Oh, the walking was incredible, they said. And so regardless of how you go about vacationing, if international is your thing, then you definitely want to have a plan for doing that in your 60s and 70s. Because once you're in your 80s, that gets real tricky. So the guy on the video, the YouTube video, I think he said they now live in Arizona. And now their travel is they have a couple dogs, and now they travel by car because they are in their maybe mid to late 70s. So there's if traveling and seeing new stuff is your thing, there's a gazillion things to see in the United States. And that's maybe easier to do when you're in your 70s. International travel is a lot more difficult. So, 60s, 50s, there's no reason to wait till. I have a lot of friends, including us, who certainly have not waited to do our international traveling until retirement. So if that's your thing, there's probably as good a time to start as right now, but certainly early years of retirement while you still can is a great thing.
That's awesome. Yeah, absolutely. So maybe we can learn from some of these regrets. And if you feel like you are kind of looking into the future and saying, yeah, okay, I want to travel more. I want to make sure that I'm spending the right amount in the early years of my retirement. Maybe I can retire earlier than I'm assuming. You should probably run the numbers. And that's something that you can do with David and the team at Cover Your Assets KC. All you have to do is get in touch by calling at 913-317-1414. You can ask David questions that might be on your mind or set up the opportunity for a full CPR review of your financial plan. That's the complete planning review process that David's going to take you through to look at under the hood at your financial plan, see what changes need to be made so that you can get to and through retirement with confidence. Again, call 913-317-1414 or go online to coveryourassetskc.com. And we'll put a link to that and the contact information in the description of today's show so you can easily find it. David, thanks for breaking down this video for us. That was fun. We will link to that video as well in the description if you want to go check that out and help that guy's YouTube channel out a little bit. Why not pass along some fun and success to him? And
absolutely, he got to listen from me.
Yeah, exactly. And hey, great job recording today's podcast from a closet. We have to tell the audience the first room you were in today. You mentioned being recording remotely and kind of being on the road today. It was very echoey. So David found a carpeted closet and executed the show beautifully.
Yep. So how about that? You just a little bit of inventiveness, and boy, you can do just about anything.
The sound was so good, David. We might have to make this your permanent spot. So be careful.
Maybe not. I don't think there's an air conditioning vent in here.
might get a little hot at some point. Yeah. Let's or cold depending on the season.
Yeah. Well, hey, thanks for finding that video. I thought it was really good.
Yeah, sometimes the simplest concepts are the best, right? And clearly, it struck a chord with folks in the YouTube world, so why not talk about it ourselves? And I think it'll help some folks who listen to it today.
For sure.
We'll talk to you again in 2 weeks, David. Thank you for the help. Good luck to the Chiefs in these first couple of games, and we will catch up again soon.
Sounds great. Go Chiefs.
Appreciate it, David. See you next time, everybody. Thanks for joining us on Cover Your Assets, KC. Advisory services offered through Creative One Wealth, LLC, an investment advisor. KC Financial Advisors and Creative One Wealth, LLC are not affiliated. We are an independent financial services firm helping individuals create retirement strategies using a variety of insurance products to custom suit their needs and objectives. The information and opinions contained in this program have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed. They are given for informational purposes only and are not a solicitation to buy or sell any of the products mentioned. The information is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual situation. This material has been provided by a licensed insurance professional for informational and educational purposes only and is not endorsed or affiliated with the Social Security Administration or any government agency. It is not intended to provide and should not be relied upon for accounting, legal, tax, or investment advice.